We'll actually start again in Hosea chapter 4 for a minute. I will say, yes, my surgery seemed to go well. Happy with that. Everything worked fine for about 3 days. The physical therapist said, "Oh, do these exercises." "Oh, that's easy. I can do more than that." Don't ask me about after that. So the last couple of days, I'm yesterday and today I'm paying for it. So I'll behave myself better. Apparently my wife was right. Who would have known? I will say this, Betty did well with her surgery. I am disappointed that the doctors couldn't make me look better. She came out looking much better than I do, so. Must have had better doctors, Eddie.
No better material to work with.
Oh, let's not go there. Hosea chapter 4, especially verse 6. Okay, Hosea is a prophet. Who's he dealing with? What kind of people is he dealing with? Who are the people he's dealing with?
The northern kingdom.
Okay, northern kingdom, Israel and Judah. That's always confusing because before they were split, Israel was everybody. The northern kingdom took the majority of the tribes, but here's one of the interesting ones. They didn't take everybody. Were there any of the other tribes, we think of the southern kingdom of Judah, being the tribe of Judah and Levi that they took. Did any of the Levites go to the north? Apparently a lot of them went to the north and just decided to teach false doctrine. The idea of preachers, people that are commissioned by God as teachers, teaching false doctrine and error is nothing new. You go back to the book of Judges, you will find a couple of cases of a priest hired to preach whatever the people wanted. And it still happens today, of course. But in the division of the northern and southern kingdoms, kind of the majority of the Levites ended up staying with Jerusalem in the temple there. There were those that went north. The other tribes as well. Can you name at least one or two of the other tribes that members of those tribes show up in the New Testament? Tribe of Benjamin. Okay, who was a Benjaminite? Benjaminite.
He was the youngest of the 12.
Okay, he was the youngest. Famous people that come out of the tribe of Benjamin. Saul. Which Saul? You ever think about that? Do you suppose that the Apostle Paul's mother named him Saul as a member of the tribe of Benjamin because that was a famous ancestor of his? A lot of us end up with names named for our ancestors. So nothing unusual about that at all. So we know for a fact that he was of the tribe of Benjamin. Name any others in the New Testament that are mentioned? Ooh, that gets kind of confusing. There's not a whole lot mentioned other just in passing that so-and-so was of that tribe. And there's at least two others. I'll leave those, let you do a little research on that. And in case you want to try it, artificial intelligence doesn't usually give you the right answer, so it takes the real kind. So Hosea is a prophet to the northern kingdom right at the end of that kingdom's existence. Talk about a dirty job. Any volunteers to go and take his place? Things have gotten to the point that they are so bad, God is trying to get across a really You notice that in conversation, there are words that you just don't use politely about people. And God's going to use some pretty ugly words in Hosea about his people. What is he charging them with? Spiritually, what crime have they committed? Idolatry? Even dirtier word than that, adultery. They've cheated on their God, on their Heavenly Father. We use the term about God as our Father in heaven, our Heavenly Father. Do we realize how important that relationship is? It's sad because a lot of people on this earth, can't even blame Johnny for the train whistle, can we? A lot of people, just have the I lost my train of thought now. It's gone. That train fell off the tracks.
We're talking about the adultery of Egypt.
Yes, of Israel. And
we being the church, the bride of Christ, it makes you look around and wonder how many of so-called churches have done the same thing.
we tend to use little polite terms like unfaithfulness. That sounds better than just coming out right and talking about adultery. That's kind of an ugly word. And God is going to use some ugly words with his people. When we treat God in a way that is ugly, that breaks our relationship, it's really only fair that God call us out for it, isn't it? We don't like that anywhere in life, do we? If we do something wrong, if Mark's here, I can pick on him. just made his day. But if the boss does something wrong, he hasn't really done something wrong and messed up. It's you misunderstood something, or you dance around it and you're very polite. At this point, God is tired of being polite about it. His people have committed an ugly sin and revolting against him. That relationship of father, of husband and wife. Our world has a lot of people that don't understand what good fathers are. That's sad. That is incredibly sad to see young people without fathers, and young men, young ladies without fathers to encourage them in the right way. At the concert last night, watched 3 different fathers. I don't know if all 3 of the wives were playing in the orchestra or what, but 3 different fathers with little ones. 12 months to 18 months old little ones. And the dad's all sitting there playing with them and keep them entertained and quiet. If you don't believe that's hard to do, try it for a couple hours with a little one like that. And yet the dads were engaged with those children. You like to see that. It's a wonderful thing to see. But what happens when a child, and this is again one of the illustrations that God used, what happens when a child walks away from their parents and says, I don't want to be like that. I want to rob banks and kill people. Kind of disappointing, isn't it? And God uses now with Hosea an even different illustration, if anything, even uglier. What about a husband or wife that says, I believe I would really rather have an affair with someone else? The whole point is that's an ugly attitude. And what's the cause of that? As Charles mentioned, we have churches today, we have a lot of religious people that claim to follow God. I find it hilarious. They get on the news and say, God has no problem with you having a homosexual lover. Really? Haven't actually read the Bible, have you? Oh, it doesn't mean what it says. Did you ever try that argument with your parents when you were little? You told me not to do that. I know you didn't mean that. It doesn't work, does it? You're still in trouble when you've done that. So the attitude of the people here is horrendous. And God is going to break it down and make it as ugly as possible. What is the real reason behind sins like that?
Rebellion against God.
Okay, the sin of rebellion against God, that's what it basically constitutes. What's the cause of that?
Selfishness, they want to do what they want to do.
Okay, the selfishness. We see a world. Okay, how many of you growing up had a phone and took selfies all the time? That's because they didn't have phones back when you were growing up, Mark. The world has changed. And yet one of the things that gets pushed on people so much, and it doesn't matter whether they're young, middle-aged, old people, it's amazing how many people love to take pictures of themselves and post them on social media. Here's what I had for breakfast this morning. Who cares? If it wasn't biscuits and gravy with an extra side of bacon, it wasn't worth having. So who cares what you had for breakfast? And yet, this is the kind of self-absorption, and honestly, that is exactly the kind of thing that if you go through the Bible, that's exactly what's happened every single time. What caused Adam and Eve to sin? I want something that I am not supposed to have, that God said don't have. Now, why would your parents ever tell you not to do something? Because they're mean, right? They don't want you to have any fun. That's why we as parents tell our children, don't do that. I don't want you to have any fun. I want you to be miserable like me. In the end, when we commit sin against God, the ultimate bottom line for our reasoning is something that God mentions through Hosea. Hosea 4, verse 6. Yeah, and that's kind of one of those that needs to be underlined in your Bible. Highlighted. God says, my people are destroyed because I didn't give them enough things that they wanted. Nope. That's not it. My people are destroyed. My people lose out. They leave God. Why?
For lack of knowledge, according to this.
And you know the worst kind of ignorance? It's one thing for somebody to say, I didn't know. If you're going through the school zone, tomorrow morning with the little lights flashing and the lights are out for some reason or you don't notice them and you're doing 40 miles an hour instead of the 35. And you explain to the nice officer that pulls you over and says, I didn't know. What's he going to tell you?
Should have known.
You should have known. Whose responsibility is it to know? Well, we're picking on Mark, or it must be Mark's fault. It's not. It's our fault. God says, my people are destroyed because they're ignorant. They're stupid. Oh, can't use that word. Actually, that's what God said. Their lack of knowledge. They have rejected knowledge. It's not just, I don't know, but I don't want to know. I don't care to know. I will do. Anybody ever said this? Maybe once or twice before you got in trouble for it. I will do as I please. And God comes back, and in that parental attitude. What do you say to your children when they say, I will do as I please? Oh, no, you won't. That's not happening. And it's hilarious that the less mature a child is, how do you treat them? When your 2-year-old says, I will not go here, how do you treat a 2-year-old? You pick them up, and yes, you will. This is what you will do. Or if you're in the grocery store, you just keep telling them, I'm going to count to 10. And I've seen people in the grocery stores count to 5, 10,000 with their children. Let them get away with murder. When you do not, this is a hard one for us, when we do not discipline, enforce correct behavior, we are actually approving wrong behavior. Think about that. The more we let ourselves or anyone else get away with what's wrong, the more we have essentially approved that wrong behavior. Charles?
One of the worst feedbacks I have had is in regard to being responsible for teaching your children regarding the Bible. Well, I'll let them, when they grow up and grown, then they can decide on their own. Well, my response is, well, do you not realize the world is teaching them from the day they step out the door for school or whatever, and so you're letting the world and whoever they come into contact with, social media being one of the main things, they don't even have to step out of the house. So you're allowing them to be taught by all this stuff, but you're not going to do the right thing by teaching them the proper values that they should be. And when I hear that, it just makes me want to crack my teeth.
First question, every time I've ever heard that, and I cannot tell you how many times I've heard that in my life. Can I say this out loud? From stupid people. How many of us would ever say, my child doesn't like school, I believe they should be able to stay home and play and do as they please. And when they get older, 25 or 30 years old, if they decide they want some education, then I'll let them decide. How many of you accepted that argument from your 6-year-old when they decide on the second day of school, I don't want to go back? Not going to happen. The whole purpose of discipline is to get us to be trained to do the right thing. How do you learn the right thing to do?
By being taught and by being held accountable for your behavior.
Exactly. You have to be shown the right thing to do. You have to practice the right thing to do. Have you ever noticed how much practice improves things? Now I could get to pick on Eddie and Lou a while, leave Mark alone. Do you know how they can play an instrument so well? So much better than those same instruments can be played by me or Mark or any of the rest of us. How do they do that? I love hearing Lou with her students years ago so many times, You know what the secret ingredient is to being good at an instrument? Practice. How much practice? Practice. 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 Until it becomes just literally second nature. The idea, you see a note, and that's immediately the note you're going to go to. You know the right fingering, you know what that's going to do. We laugh about it. Is that not exactly what works out with us in everything else we do. Anybody ever learn to drive a car? How well did you do going down the road the first time?
Ditch to ditch.
Exactly. Well, sometimes even beyond the ditches a little bit. You know, it's hard to do. How do you learn to do it right? Practice. You know, I can pick on Derek too. How do you learn to play softball correctly? How many times do you have to practice catching a ground ball before you're really good at it? And believe me, it can still fool you even after you practice a lot, huh? How much practice does it take to turn a double play? To recognize immediately, oh, I've got to go here. I can see the runner there. It's hilarious, the things that the built-in, okay, little science here, built-in feedback. Do you know how many lines of code it took to design the first spacecraft so that Neil Armstrong could land on the moon? There was a stack of punch cards and computer programs from here to the ceiling several times over. Now, really hard question. I can pick on Michelle next. Y'all begin to think I'm going to work through the whole crowd, huh, today. I might. Michelle gets out there driving one of those big trucks. How do you know how much braking force to use to keep from hitting the car in front of you?
Trial and error.
Trial and error. You got to practice.
That didn't work.
And I guarantee the first few times you did it, because I've been there and done that, first few times you did it, that truck's going to just go sailing right through that little intersection there and go, whoa, that's not near enough. Or you stand it on its nose and whoa, I didn't need to hit the brakes that hard. Do you realize that every single time you come to a stop sign or a traffic light, your mind goes through the same set of computations that NASA ran to get that lunar lander to land on the moon? It's exactly the same setup. That's where they came up with the idea. And by the way, let me just throw this one in for free. If anyone ever tells you that it took a bunch of engineers and programmers to send a man to the moon and land a lunar lander on the moon, because that couldn't happen accidentally, and then with a straight face tells you that a human mind, oh, that had to come about accidentally by evolution. That's the dumbest thing you will ever hear in your life. Where did the human mind come from? Where did us as humans come from? Back there in Genesis, the first chapter, God created. It's not accidental at all. Now, all this goes together. This is God who has created his people, who loves them so much, wants them to do the right thing, has instructed them the right thing to do, and they're still so dumb as to intentionally choose the wrong thing. Who taught you to drive a big truck, Michelle? Your husband? How impressed would he have been had you been driving the truck and you just plowed right through the intersection into another car? Well, that's not the way you do it. And if Michelle responds to either her driving instructor or the police officer at the scene, says, well, I do it my own way. That's how I want to do it. Not a one of us would buy that argument, would we? And that's exactly what God... Listen, go back to the first chapter here of Hosea. Chapter 1, beginning in verse 5. Hosea has been told to go out and take a wife from a nation of harlotry. It's a little unclear. Is she a practicing harlot? Very possible. At the very least, religiously, she is a practicing harlot, and she may be physically practicing harlotry. The way God has worded it, kind of left it open for both ways. And they have 3 children. We'll come back to them in just a minute. 3 children. And here's what God says, beginning in verse 4. I will have no compassion on her children, because they're children of harlotry. Now, understand, God has said repeatedly throughout Old and New Testament, who's responsible to God for their sin? The sinner. Every single individual. But if you teach someone else to sin, or fail to teach them what's right, will God hold you accountable for that too? They're accountable for their sins. There's at least 2 of the prophets in the Old Testament that were flat out told that by God. If you don't speak up and tell the truth and the right thing to do, then you're just as responsible as the one who did wrong. So God has every right to say, look, if your children are acting just like you've taught them to, then I have no compassion on them. I don't love them. Ooh, God can't say that, can he? That's actually what he says. I have no love. I have no compassion for them. I don't care, because they're children. If they turn away from me, then I don't care. That's just a scary thought, isn't it? To reach the point with God where he simply says, I don't care. Verse 5, he says, their mother has played the harlot. She who conceived them has acted shamefully. And she said, I will go after my lovers. And this is how the story develops here. It appears that, excuse me, it appears that for certain, almost certain, the first child is actually, Gomer's first child is actually Hosea's child. The wording is increasingly vague as to whether or not the next 2 children are his or not. And then after the children come along, she says, I'm going back to my old job. And this is God making points that the one who's conceived them. Now, let's get one out of the way right away. Are children born in sin? Still have the sin of Adam claiming. Who's responsible for the sin? Who has to answer for the sin of Adam to God? Adam. Every child starts life pure and free from sin. But they have a choice to make. How well do any of us do with our choice? I mean, how many times can you fail God? He sets a pretty high standard, doesn't he? Did God tell Adam and Eve, said, look, I'm sorry, you guys sinned, but it's only one sin, so you get another chance? How many chances do we get for our sin? The soul that sins, God said, it will die. Now, is there any way on earth to ever get another chance? Because we deserve it, right? Yeah. God simply steps in and says, you get another chance. I can go back picking on Derek. You miss one of those balls that comes at you. Is it okay for the coach to simply say, okay, you're out of here. We'll get somebody that wants to stay away. You ever see anybody that played ball out in the field by taking a nap? You know, like the Peanuts characters. Lucy out in the outfield. And she's looking around at everything else and doing everything else, and then the ball bonks her on the head. Is it fair for the coach, let's ask a coach, is it fair for the coach to pull a player that is not actually making the effort to do the right thing? Seems perfectly fair, doesn't it? We don't have a leg to stand on.
I wish you were parent of that child.
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, my child can do anything, then. So God's pretty blunt about it. Says, I have no compassion, no love for her children. They're children of harlotry. Their mother has completely disobeyed God. They've chosen to disobey God. Their mother has played the harlot. She who conceived them has acted shamefully, for she said, I will go after my lovers. They give me bread and water, my wool, my flax, my oil. I get everything from my lover. Where did Gomer get everything? Who actually provided for her? Hosea, her husband, provided everything for her. She simply made the choice, says, oh, grass is always greener on the other side of the fence, right? And if you don't believe that that is a common idea, next time the cows are grazing down here on Highway 30, watch how many of them will stretch their necks out beyond the fence to get that little bit of greener grass on the other side of that fence, instead of the even better stuff that's right behind them. You can put them out in a field of clover. You can put them in the best hay you've ever seen, and they will stretch their necks for that one last little tidbit over there that might be better on the other side of the fence. Are we as dumb as a bunch of cows? Sometimes. We certainly can be. Verse 6, God says, therefore, behold, I will put a hedge around her. I will hedge up her way with thorns. I will build a wall against her so that she cannot find her paths. She will pursue her lovers, but she will not overtake them. She will seek them, but will not find them. And then she will finally say, I will go back to my husband, for it was better for me then than now. You get what an incredibly sad picture that God is painting here. If the only way we will ever go back to God is because God has made us so miserable that, oh, well, I guess we might as well go back to Him. That's pretty sad, isn't it? And we certainly run the risk that God may well say, no. All of us have dealt with people that we'd love to have converted, taught about God's Word. Maybe even you've had somebody that said, hey, like a guy did to the Apostle Paul in the New Testament, said, tell me this some more convenient time. Now's not the right time. For King Agrippa, was there ever a more convenient time? Did there ever come a day when he said, I want to listen to and obey God? As far as we know, there was not. But I would suggest that there was one day when he wished he had. And you see God's whole point here in all of this. Okay, first 3 chapters. Hosea marries Gomer. They seem to be happy initially for a time. 3 children are born. The first child is a son. God scatters. Going out again. And it seems to foreshadow the idea that Gomer is planning to forsake her husband. She has a daughter. They named the daughter Not Pitied. You ever come across somebody you just absolutely did not feel sorry for them? We even use the word, they got what they deserved. That's pretty stiff talk, isn't it? God names this daughter Not Pitied. And again, the possibility is there. The father is not Hosea. A third child, a son, comes along. And this one is named Not My People. Can you imagine naming your child, your son, or your daughter, as you don't belong to me? That's not one of the first choices that comes to mind for a name, is it? And then, evidently, Gomer completely deserts Hosea. She goes out, she seeks other lovers. If you haven't gone ahead and read the book of Hosea here, read it, the whole thing. She goes out, she finds her other lovers. Her progression of sin leads her to the slave market. She's enslaved. And guess who goes and rescues her from the slave market? Hosea. I mean, could any of us blame Hosea if he said, she made her bed, let her lie in it. She's got what she wanted, what she deserves. By the way, what New Testament story echoes this parallel of Hosea going out and getting her and letting her come back home to be his bride again? The prodigal son. Isn't Jesus telling essentially the same story? The prodigal son says, hey, I want to do my own thing. Give me what's mine. I'm going out. How did he spend it? Wasted it. Blew every dime he had. Or dram. They probably didn't have dimes back then, did they? So he wasted everything that he had of his inheritance. And it's hilarious. You remember what he's doing? What he's eating to stay alive?
Pig food.
Pig food. He's Jewish. He's not even supposed to be around the pigs. He's unclean from simply being in contact with them. And he's eating their food just to stay alive. And you remember what he thinks to himself?
My father's servants have plenty to eat.
Every one of the servants in my father's house have more to eat than this. And it tastes better too. I don't know about you. Anybody ever raise pigs? How many of you would want to take a bite of what they're eating? That's not usually the first choice on my plate when I serve myself, is it? We even have a fancy name for it, pig slop. Most of us as parents were experts enough about pig slop to at least tell our children when they mixed up their food on their plate, that looks like pig slop. You would think that all parents go to pig school and learn about pig slop. Okay, you don't believe me, do you? I can tell by the look on your face. What do you tell your children their room looks like when they haven't cleaned it up? Looks like a pigsty in here. Okay, so we are experts on pigs, aren't we? And you get Jesus' illustration there. This boy looks at himself and says, hey, I can be the least slave in my father's house and still be treated better than I am here. And he goes home. And by the way, go back to the Gospel of Luke and read that one when you have time this afternoon. He plans out a complete speech for what to tell his father, his apology. And I find it hilarious if you actually go back and read that. Most translations have his speech there to his father when he arrives at his father. Most of his speech is in italics, because that doesn't really exist. Yes, there were one or two copyists of the New Testament that said, well, he said he was going to say it, so he must have said it all. Apparently, he didn't get a chance. And if you understand anything about being a parent and a child coming back after they've done wrong, do you suppose Dad would have stopped him as he started that sentence? Father, I've sinned in your sight, in heaven's sight. Let me tell you, no, Dad, don't be hugging me. I've got 15 minutes more speech to give you. Dad doesn't have 15 more minutes. He's thrilled to see his son home. And that young man doesn't get to finish that speech. He's welcomed home. Hosea still loves his bride in spite of her sin. God still loves his people in spite of their sin. And he's the one that goes out of his way to redeem his people and restore us. Does that sound at all anything like familiar to what God has done for us? He's gone to the point of giving his own son to die for us. Not because we were so wonderful, because we were out there rolling in sin with the pigs. He redeems us. He restores us. And the really sad question comes, what happens? What happens after we're brought back? Do we stay faithful? Or do we walk away yet again? Okay, quiz time for next week. So you might want to have a look back through Hosea. I got lots of questions. Comments, thoughts? We'll finish up Hosea next week then. Thank y'all.